Yes, hello everyone. Welcome back to another weekend review show here on Unclare with me, Seamus Brady, your host for this one. I'm joined by Jer Gregan once again. Jer, we had a busy weekend and I had a bit of an inkling. I said, "Do you know what, I better get a neutral man on because obviously the top game of the weekend was Cork and Limerick. Everybody's talking about that one. I said, who do I know who can't decide which one he wants to lose more between Limerick and Cork? So I said, I get a clown.
Not bad as if Liverpool think. That'd be a much
Yeah,
harder one for me to decide, but yeah, it was feisty, and
yeah,
you could even tell. Uh, you could even tell on the TG Carter stream, who should be thanked for stepping in to broadcast. Um, and they actually did deferred coverage as well on the TV. But you could even tell on the TV that the Cork supporters who dominated, it's early, but they're optimistic for this year. They know how close they were last year, and they're getting behind Cork from day one. You could see that the ref was under pressure at every decision, and they were going to let the ref know what they thought about him. So,
yeah.
uh, yeah, and we'll probably get into detail. A few controversial incidents throughout the game.
Definitely. We'll dive straight in. We'll try to unpack it as much as we can. Cork 116, Limerick 116, Porky Queeve. Just, we'll start off on a little bit of a positive note. What does it say about how strong hurling is, especially in these two counties? I mean, a league game drummed up this much interest on a weekend where obviously we had the Six
And the
Nations
weather.
and the weather. Yeah, like I mean, there was so many deterrents, especially the games being shown on TG
Yeah.
Car meant that you had the option of just staying at home. Still, that many people turned out, and it was a real arm wrestle of a game. It reminded me a lot of like this whole battle between these two. It does remind me a lot of Tipperary Kilkenny in the early 2010s, like where Kilkenny are beaten, and now it's will they follow in Kilkenny's footsteps in terms of reclaiming the Liam McCarthy. But this one is definitely
It's,
it's definitely two teams that know each other all too well.
I will say, there was part of me about 15 minutes into this game where I was wondering, geez, are Cork almost playing a bit too well? We'll get on to Tipperary a
Yeah,
bit later, but I was like, if they're to win, if they if they were to win comfortably, which looked a possibility in the first 15 minutes, that they could regret that come championship if they were to burn out. But I think after the 15 minutes, you could tell Limerick. I know they only lost to them twice last year, which for other counties, considering Limerick have had their edge for quite a number of years before that. But geez, you could. I think there was a spark there when they fell behind, where Limerick were like, "No, no, we're sending you a message.
yeah,
We've All Ireland medals. You beat us twice, but you've no All Ireland medals on your team just yet." So, uh, arm wrestle. I mean, things were getting very physical. Sean Stack had to whip out quite a number of yellow cards, and the more the game went on, I actually think back. I'm actually shocked because he was still issuing yellow cards in injury time that no one he was issuing them to at that stage had already
got
been
his second
booked.
one. Yeah, that was crazy. Like it meant a game like that where there was no red cards. But let's just jump right into this. There will be a red card, and
Yeah,
you cannot
retrospective, there
change.
will.
Yeah, you cannot change my mind on this. Seamus Flanagan deserves to be suspended for that
Yeah,
incident with Niall O'Leary. I mean, I've no doubt you've seen the clips
yeah.
where he just
Well,
jabs him straight into the balls with his hair. Like that, there's no question of what the intention was with that jostling and bit of argy bargy with the guy you're marking. That is absolutely part and parcel of the game. But like to actually like I'm gonna hit you where it hurts that
yeah,
type red card, and if, like the fact that we have it on video footage,
yeah.
we shouldn't set a precedence that people can get away with this if the referee didn't see it. He should absolutely be suspended, in my opinion. Fairly open and shut case. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. It's online, it's clear. So I think retrospectively it'll be looked at and there definitely will be a suspension. Uh, Complete overreaction, unnecessary, not needed, particularly for a
Yeah,
league game. I mean, this isn't, a
yeah, first
knockout
round of the league. Yeah,
championship. For Limerick first round, yeah. Jeez, it's actually quite confusing when you have to buy and you have to remember there are some teams who are out this week across the hurling
Yeah.
divisions. It's their first game, but yeah, I mean, completely unnecessary. And Seamus Flanagan, he is one of their best players. Who do Limerick have to play next, actually?
I wouldn't
Uh,
know that off the top of my head. I'll get
yeah,
it up here.
yeah,
Hogan Stand have all the list of the fixtures and all. That's brilliant. Like they just literally listed out.
yeah.
Big shout out to them if you haven't done that. But as well, people talking about, oh well, Niall O'Leary did this and Niall O'Leary did that, and I'm like, I couldn't care less what Niall O'Leary did. Like, it didn't seem like Niall O'Leary hit Seamus Flanagan anywhere where it would have
Yeah.
caused him to go down like that. So,
Oh, but
was there
Niall
a bit of
O'Leary,
shoulders, bit of shit talk? Absolutely, but like that's fine compared to actually hitting someone in the privates with your hurl. It's not what the game's about. It's not manly. It's below the belt, and I don't really respect it. But yeah, red card. I think we're fairly in agreement on that. Talking about the pattern of play in the game, Cork obviously made the fast start, and then Limerick, rolled back into the contest. Will O'Donoghue who got that goal. Unfortunately, he got injured and had to be withdrawn. Hopefully, it's not too bad. But at halftime, it was fairly neck and neck, and then in the second half, Limerick opened up a little bit of a gap until Shane Barrett's goal. And then Cork obviously had the comeback. Barrett scored. Do you think that was the key one in the game, or which one would you have kind of highlighted?
well, the goal was definitely needed at that stage because Limerick looks like they're opening up a gap and the game seemed to be slipping away from Cork.
Yeah.
And it actually got a bit quiet in the stadium at that stage. The Cork supporters, who were fairly dominant, didn't have much to cheer for. The other time they were really making noises anytime they heard the ref's whistle at that stage. But definitely brought them back in. Uh, what Pat Ryan will definitely be happy about is even when Limerick were sending the gap for where you want to be in January, Cork were creating a lot of chances. Few dropped short, few went wide, but at least he was saying, okay, at least we're creating chances. Maybe if it's summer, the ball is drier, all this, better conditions might go over.
Mm-hmm.
But, the chance at this time of year, creating chances, I feel, can be a big thing. If they're dropping short, going wide, you're about 60% of the way there. So if Pat Ryan's to take positives from Limerick's purple patch, it's the fact Cork still create the chances. So,
And that definitely is. No, that definitely is a good one. Like Kevin Kennedy from the GA Stats Up, obviously, big shout out to him. He was on the pod
yeah,
last week and he was highlighting how Meath in the football, for example, had lost to Cork. And he was saying, "No, trust me, if you look at the stats, Meath got off a lot of shots, created a lot of chances. They just missed today."
yep,
He was like, if you convert 50% of 30 shots or 50% of 36 shots, you know,
yep,
18 scores on the board, and Limerick and Meath today, sorry, put 321 on Cavan and got a very impressive win in round two. So
yeah.
it definitely is a showcasing that, if you shoot enough, you will find the target. Yeah, I thought that the game was slipping away from Cork in that period when Adam English, Shane O'Brien, like they hit a couple of scores, a nice purple patch for Limerick, and I thought maybe the game was slipping away. Then Barrett gets his goal, and obviously then it runs into the final few minutes where Limerick are ahead by the minimum. Cork wouldn't go away. And then there were debates over the additional time. Once again, ladies and
I
gentlemen, I will state the case for a stop clock, like a clock that stops, because just like the LGFA clock, you will never hear in the LGFA debates about timekeeping or how much added time should have been added on. And once again, we're here with a situation like this where everybody's saying, oh, Sean Stack played too long. He let Cork get a winner. But if there's a robot clock that just goes
yeah.
off, you've ran out of time and there's no disputing it. It's such a simple fix. I don't know why it's just not happening in Ireland. It's
Naturally
very
being
much because it's literally left in the
naturally,
hands of the referee.
naturally being from Clare, we're always a fan of the referee's discretion when it comes to the
Yeah,
clock.
Donald O'Donovan.
Donald Donovan. What I was actually glad for was Cork got a bit more than 30 seconds. Geez,
Oh my
11
God,
years
yeah.
later, 11 years later, Cork still give to us about the 30 seconds.
Yeah.
They weren't complaining about, what was it, 2 minutes. I will be honest though, in injury time, um, due to the weather, I remember Sean Stack, he was doing a disciplinary issue and he was actually struggling to get the cards out at one stage. I actually think I actually think the 2 minutes probably was warranted because there was a bit of discipline and issuing of cards that I do think 2 minutes of the injury time was lost. So I
Mhm.
don't have a problem with that. I just did enjoy the fact that Cork have now gotten an equaliser when the ref was generous with the time.
I'd
If only
say
it
as
was a
a care man, I'd say you enjoyed the fact that neither of them went home happy. Somehow they both would have left
somehow.
Porky Grieve annoyed that the
Yeah.
result.
Well, let's put it this way: in the dying seconds, I'd say Cork would have been more relieved with the draw, because
Yeah, and
uh,
I think a
even
win would have went. I think a win would have meant more to Limerick in this fixture because I think when you look at how Cork had beaten them twice last year in the championship, if they were to have beaten them in this game as well in Porky Creeve,
yep.
then it would have been actually somewhat of a psychological challenge for Limerick going into the Munster Championship because then you're coming up against a team who have beaten you 3 times in a row and fully believe that they're going to beat you every time they play you, and it would have
Is
been a
there
different test for Limerick.
is there still a psychological challenge for Limerick? The fact they didn't beat Cork this time, though, that this is now 3 fixtures in a row where they haven't been able to get over the line against Cork.
Potentially, because again, that wasn't like it wasn't a you were right there. It wasn't a pristine, perfect game of
Yeah.
hurling. Like the conditions definitely didn't allow for that. It was very much an arm wrestle. It was very much who wants this game more is going to get over the line here. And the fact is, Limerick probably should have closed it out. Like the game was definitely there for them.
Yeah.
And I think maybe with some other
Also,
big players in the pitch, maybe if Will O'Donoghue had been able to see the game out, like I think his influence would have been massive on the pitch. But I do
Cork
think John
had their
Kiley would
injuries.
be furious.
Cork
Yeah,
had their injuries in that game. Power went off very soon. I'm
yeah,
not
that was
sure at
sad to
this
see.
time of
And
the year.
Connor Lahan on and immediately back off with the injury. I hope he's okay
Yeah,
because that looked a rough one.
yeah, that did look rough. I have to say, I'd question whether, in terms of long-term planning, both in terms of this year and the years ahead, when Power went off and it was like it was within the first 15 minutes anyway. Patrick Organ is one of the best hurlers in the country still. I mean, he
Yeah.
still comes across as a young man, but still, probably for, again, second round fixture, you'd probably prefer to see someone new being given the chance to step up at this time of year. We know Hoggy can give it in championship. I don't think he needs to play a second round league game.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think I've always been buzzing to see Ben Cunningham players like that. In Cork, I've been pushing to kind of see them. If I were a Cork fan, I'd be dying to see Ben Cunningham with the seniors and see what he can do.
Was he even on the
So,
panel last night even? I don't think he was even on the subs
no.
bench.
Patrick
Was he injured?
McDonough says Cork in slightly better shape than Limerick. I would agree.
Yeah.
I do
Yeah.
think Cork definitely, in terms of that game, I think Cork definitely didn't play to the level that they're capable of. Limerick didn't either, but I
Yeah.
think Cork actually were probably lucky to get the draw, all things considered. And that's my main takeaway is
Yeah.
once again, we've seen a situation in GAA where the clock has an issue. And already in Gaelic football, we're seeing that when the hooter goes, it's undisputed, time's up, and
The one
nobody
thing,
seems to have an issue with it. And in the LGFA, there's never an issue with it. In hurling, we've just seen Cork and Limerick where it's completely up to the referee's discretion. It's always going to cause problems because teams will say, you played too long, you played too little, they wasted 2 minutes and you only added on 1 minute, everything like that. With a clock like the LGFA has, and now very similar to what Gaelic football have introduced, it's undisputed. And I think this game would have benefited a lot from a clock like that because maybe the time just would have ran out. Limerick
yeah.
would have got the win and
Yeah.
Cork couldn't have had any arguments.
The one thing I would change though is I prefer if the Cruiser went after the ball was out of play. So I don't like it going when the ball is still in play. If
I
a team
agree.
is on the attack, let the attack finish, then finish it. That'd be the one
I
thing I
agree.
change.
My perfect solution, and this, by the way, is for all codes: LGFA, Gaelic
Yeah,
football, hurling, camogie. My idea would be a countdown clock that stops every time the ball is out of play. So substitutions, free kicks, everything like that, it stops. And then when the hooter goes, it signals that time is up, but then it's like rugby. Once the hooter goes, it's out, like it's the next play. The next time the ball
yeah,
goes dead, that's it. The game's over.
yeah.
And I think the drama that you would have if the hooter goes and the teams are level and like you've got one shot to win it, like it would be absolutely crazy. Johnny Barrett with the comment of the day, he says, I had the draw backed between Cork and Limerick. So did everyone in Cork and Limerick. Backed the draws. The referee played for the draw. Even with
Where's
the
that
clock,
guy?
teams
Where
still
is
played.
that guy from? It's like, where's that guy from that Everton, Cork, and Limerick had backed the draw? Has he met anyone from Cork?
maybe I don't know. I don't know if Cork and Limerick would have been shaking hands and happy with the draw and everything like that. Even if they'd won money,
No,
the rivalry is so intense. But anyway, we have a lot to get through, so we will move through the games now. Tipperary made it 2 from 2. 122 to Wexford's 19 points at Temple Stadium. Given the two teams and their opening results, obviously Tipperary annihilating Galway, Wexford getting annihilated by Cork, I wasn't expecting anything different. A 6-point win for Tipperary, who are looking good under Liam Cahill. Wexford, you would be concerned. I know that they're missing a lot of players, but relegation for me looks unavoidable.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually shocked that it was only 6 points. I thought it was going to be more. I love the way you say Tip looking good, because does Liam Cahill always look good in January?
Yeah. Do you think
But
that's a
more,
concern? Do you think that's a concern that his
well,
team are
this
looking
time,
good again at this time
well,
of year?
this time you would kind of be concerned if they look super fit and they're putting up these crazy scores. It's been like, okay, you saw it last year. I remember Tip annihilating Dublin Parnell Park. I mean, I know Dublin had the bad Leinster final, but Dublin had a way better championship last year than Tipperary did.
Agreed.
The year before that, Tip had a very good league. Started Munster well, but as Munster went on, they just completely ran out of juice. And we know what happened with Watford the year before that. Won the league, and then by the time they went to Cusack Park in Ennis, like Clare were already in a Munster final. They had put out their third team, probably finished with their fourth. Watford were battling for their championship survival. They were annihilated. So honestly, if I'm Tip and I'm like,
Had Clare not broke that last year? Clare won the league and then
oh,
won the championship.
I'm not saying that winning the league is a bad thing. What I'm saying is if you look almost too good too early, like you have to bear in mind, even last year, Clare drew with Wexford in the league. You know, we weren't hammering teams week in, week out. We didn't look like we peaked. Now the league, I believe, was a good thing for us. So like, you can win a league, it can be good for you, but at the same time, if you just look too good too early, it's very difficult to maintain.
Yeah, it's very difficult to maintain that level. You definitely do need to kind of aim for it, but I still maintain it's very difficult to time that, to be like, oh, now we're going to start winning games. I think it is kind of definitely more difficult than that. Johnny says Michael Verney tipped the draw and said there should be 3 points for a win, and that will stop teams playing for the draw. I actually wouldn't. I don't hate that idea. I think giving teams more incentive to push for the win is better. If we're trying to make it more entertaining, and Patrick McDonough here says tip revival. I mean, the one thing that,
Right.
and I have to say this towards the Patrick comments, and the other thing as well, is that if I'm a Tipperary fan and I'm watching their first couple of games, the one thing that I would take a lot of hope from is after the first game, Ronan Maher and Willie Connors did an interview with TG Carr after the Galway game, and Willie Connors said, look, after last year, this is like a clean slate, a fresh start, basically, he said. And I'm like, good. Yeah. That's good, because what is clear from that is that the Cork game last year was like the lowest of the low for Tipperary. Like there was a real sense that Cork were going to batter them. The Cork fans travelled like they were going to batter them, and they did. And I've never seen a Tipperary team play that badly. So that should hurt you as a Tipperary hurler. That should hurt you. And they're looking good so far. And we've seen plenty of examples of it down through the years. Cork getting annihilated by Limerick in 2021 in that final. And they definitely used it as fuel to come back a couple of years later and put it up to Limerick and eventually beat them. Dublin in 2009 getting absolutely torn apart by Kerry in the quarterfinal. Yeah. 2 years later, beating them in the All-Ireland final. It's hugely beneficial to use defeats like that as fuel. So I'm looking forward to what Tip have for the new year. But for Wexford, can you see any way out of the situation that they're in?
Like, retirements are bad, injuries are bad. apparently Leachin is coming back, but he's full on a member of a GA club in Melbourne. So
Yeah.
again, that
I always
he's
look at Lee as well, though. I always look at
yeah,
Lee and think, God, it must be even more exhausting because he knows that like he's the guy. He's the
yeah.
one that they're looking to kind of be like, here, get us out of this. Like Lee, we're losing to Antrim again. Bail us out here, will you? That type of
I mean,
situation.
ironically, considering he was on the losing side, and it was probably a bit of a low for Wexford to lose to Antrim, but he gave an incredible performance that day. I mean,
2-11 he scored, man of the match, and,
yeah,
and lost.
yeah, like he was unbelievable that day. Yeah, I think relegation. I don't see who they beat here on out.
Yeah.
And also, let's face it, last year after Wexford lost Antrim, they did pick themselves up well afterwards. But
Hmm.
like, we're going to get onto this a bit later. But you know, Offaly, Carlow, do they fear
Their
Wexford?
standards are rising. I was saying this even as a
Yeah,
Dublin hurling fan. I'm looking at Offaly and Carlow and thinking, if I'm in their shoes, I'm looking at Dublin and Wexford and thinking we can catch these. Like there's a scalp here to be got
sorry,
if we can get them into
sorry,
it.
not Carlow, Antrim. They're actually the ones in the Leinster. But
Yeah, no, but
still,
Carlow for
yep.
future. Carlow for
But
future.
yeah, one last
Yeah,
thing though I'll say about Tip before I move on. Uh, Underage, a lot of things are going right for them.
yeah,
And unfortunately, that Chris Delisle yesterday, unfortunately from my perspective, third Harty Cup in a row, beating my alma mater, St. Francis College, third different Tipperary school to win the Harty. So,
yeah.
like, something's coming in the next few years from Tip, I feel. So hopefully Flannan's pick themselves up. I wouldn't mind a rematch in the Hogan Cup if they can reverse it and just because honestly, it's kind of quiet, but their 13-man win against Kilkenny extra time last year,
Yeah.
there's
That
something
would
coming
give
for
it.
Tip.
And that was a huge lift for the county because that came at a
Yeah.
time fresh after the Cork game, if memory serves, and it gave them a
Yep.
bit of hope. They're like, okay, things aren't great now, but there is something coming. And Johnny here, a man, Johnny, I'm backing you as a man for the horses. If we're talking about the betting and everything, he says back Tipperary for the All Ireland, great value. And then I love this, Johnny. Thank you very much. Say great GA YouTube channel and it's free. It certainly is, Johnny, and it always will be as well. I don't really like putting
I'm
stuff
just going to
behind the
check.
paywall.
I'm just
Then
going
the
to
name that I
check.
don't know how to say, he says, who will join Wexford for relegation? Jer, who do you think will go down with Wexford?
Yeah, based on results this week, Clare actually do need to beat Galway in Galway next weekend. We could find ourselves in a precarious position, but I still am going to go with my gut. I think it will be Galway who'll go down with them. They recovered well this weekend, but yeah. By the way, I just looked up the odds there on Tipperary winning. Uh, Screen's frozen. Oh no, it's back. So Tipperary are 16 to 1 to win the All Ireland. So if you put
Yeah.
€20 on tip, you're just going to lose €20.
The shit talk between Claire and Tip. It's begun. Fantastic. Patrick McGunnan here says, Seamus, you forgot Dublin could get stronger after that Leinster final. I absolutely did
Yeah.
forget that example. Thank you very much, Patrick. My thing is, as a Dublin hurling fan, I have only seen us beat Kilkenny once, and that was in 2013 when I was 12 years
But you're a
old.
Galway man now.
What?
But
Galway,
you're a
man.
Galway
I
man
moved over.
now.
Yeah, the soft spot for Galway, but I'm not forgetting. I'm not forgetting this. But I was happy for Galway with this result. Galway 219, Kilkenny 119 in Nolan Park. This was a needed result for Galway, given the performance that they'd had last week, especially at home to Tipperary.
Yeah.
To go away to Nolan Park and to win, big win for Donoghue and his tribesmen.
Yeah, I actually didn't see that coming. I was actually at the Kilkenny Galway game last week. Um, it was quite patchy from Kilkenny, but when I saw Galway last week against Tip, I really thought they were in trouble. again, I just made a prediction there, so obviously I still think they're in a bit of trouble. But at the same time, it's made me a bit more worried about Clare having to go there next Saturday evening because uh, their backs were to the wall. So if we actually lose next Saturday, I mean, you don't want to follow up an All Ireland title with relegation. So I again, I think the main thing though for a lot of the Clare panel is to try and aim for that Munster title and hopefully build from there to defend the All Ireland. I
Mhm.
don't think they're going to quite aim for a league title, but at the same time, relegation for us is just something we can't consider. So, yeah,
I have a good question for you, Jer, actually, and I do want to ask you this. This is based off kind of everything that you're saying there about what Clare should prioritize, what they should prepare for, everything like that. Obviously, looking at the careers of, I think you might be a little bit frozen there, but I'm just going to back that you can hear me and hope that you. Apologies, guys. I think we appear to be having some slight technical difficulties. I'm not sure where
yeah. Sorry,
exactly.
I'm back. I'm back. I'm back.
You're back.
So,
You're
what was the
back. You're
question?
back.
Yeah, what's the question you wanted to ask me there?
Perfect.
Sorry,
You saved it. I don't know. Was it my end or your end? Because I got a Wi-Fi signal as
I
well. So I think it
yeah,
went both.
my my phone went to mobile data and then I put it back
Uh,
onto the broadband. I was back, so I think it was my end. But what's the question? You're talking about the careers, the
question I
priorities
was
for
going to ask you
players.
is when you look at the careers of the Clare players, the one glaring thing that they don't have is the Munster medal, and they've
Yeah,
some of the players now have two All Ireland medals, which is
yeah,
crazy when you put it. I don't think any team has ever had that record
yeah.
before in any code. If I were to offer you now, as a Clare man, if I were to offer you, you can win the Liam McCarthy again or the Munster Championship, but not both.
Oh,
Which one would you take?
like are we talking
Because
just for this?
you've
Hold
already
on, hold on.
scratched
Are we
into the
talking?
All Ireland
I know. Now the only thing is, are we talking just this year, or are you talking that for the rest of the current
this
players'
year.
careers? Okay, this year. So Gerlach Nan actually summed it up perfectly at the medal presentation. He said
Yeah.
that the All Ireland was Mount Everest and Munster is K2, which is shorter than Mount Everest, but has a less survival rate and is actually harder to get to the top of. And in something that I think is insulting, he pointed out that Clare have lost something like three times the number of Munster finals since 1951, as Mayo have lost All Ireland finals, even though we have won
Wow.
three since then. But still, so no, honestly, I just kind of think that I just think it's just one of these anomalies that I want right. I want Tony Kelly, Shane O'Donnell, Conlon, Davy Mack to get that Munster medal.
Yeah. No, I
And
agree.
also,
I think if I were in your position, I would be wanting a Munster medal just to complete the set, just to that Tony has one, that John Conlon has one, that Shane O'Donnell has one. Those players are too good to retire without a provincial medal.
yep,
And I think if you were to ask them, which one do you want? You've got the All Irelands. You've got two All
yep,
Irelands. Do you want a Munster medal or another All Ireland? I think they'd pick Munster, and I think most people
yep.
would probably back that. If guys, if there's anybody in the comments who's from Clare, I'd be really interested. Or in general, if you're in Clare's position, which one would you choose? Patrick says here, bold opinion: Dublin win Leinster and Kilkenny miss out on the top three.
Oh,
Very interesting. Patrick, it'd be
hold
interesting.
on.
What
Who are the other
exactly
two?
have you seen from
Who are
Kilkenny?
the
Yeah,
other
who are
two?
the other two? And then what exactly have you seen from Kilkenny that makes you think that this will be a year that they miss out on the top three? I don't think has that happened. It hasn't happened since the round robin has
No,
begun. They've been a
very
permanent
close.
fixture.
They've they've been very close to the wire twice. So there
Yeah.
was 2019 when the table was going crazy the last day. Dublin were playing Galway and Parnell. Wexford were playing Kilkenny. I think it was at Wexford Park. That game was happening. The only thing that saved uh, Kilkenny was they managed to equalise at the last second. So they were second away from losing that game. They would have gone out, and it would have been Wexford, Galway, and Dublin in the top three. Also, I do remember,
And
I
what
think it
year
was
was that? That was 2019,
that
wasn't
was
it?
2019. The
And
other one was,
could you imagine if they had have been knocked out, then
yeah.
Limerick would have got to the All Ireland final, let's be honest.
Yeah, they would have. But also, what was kind of uh, more interesting for that is, well, actually, I'll question you on that. Galway could have been a bugbearer for Limerick because they still would have been in there, and Joe Canning was just coming back. He was just after an injury, so I'm not saying it would have happened, but Galway could have actually had a similar run that Kilkenny had, uh, if uh, if that happened. Here's an interesting story for you. I remember being in Salt Hill, 2022. It was the last round. Dublin were playing Galway, and I
Hmm.
just saw on my phone that Wexford were actually beating Kilkenny. The Galway plans were
Yeah.
cheering that they were beating Dublin, and it literally turns out I was like, no, you need Dublin to win this game. You will not beat Kilkenny in the Leinster final. You will beat Dublin. And it's like, this is your chance to put Kilkenny out. You should shout to the players, put the ball in your own net. Like literally. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. They lost the Leinster final 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
You know I hate being right.
Ah, no, I like look, the other thing as well is I would love nothing more than to see Dublin win a Leinster final in the hurling. Like it's something that has been a bugbear. And I remember going last year and it was a proper like the hope that kills
Yeah.
you type situation. I remember within 10 minutes I knew we were done. I was like, here, we're cooked. Like, get us out of the oven. Like this is gonna be a pretty grim hour to watch. And then Garrett Gregan comments here saying, "Is that the Jerry from Clare with the county medal?" uh,
I'll explain that. That is my brother. Uh, I do have a county medal, and I'm going to shock you here. It's in football. Um,
oh wow!
yeah, when my primary school won Division Two, I was in fifth class, and I played in the best spot imaginable for the team, which was obviously the bench. But I
Very
did
good.
get a medal from it. So, yeah, I will kill him later for that sarcastic comment. But yeah, I do technically have a county medal. Yeah.
There you go. We'll take that. Nerp here says, I would rather Dubs lose the Leinster. This is on the Provincial versus
Oh,
All Ireland. He said, I'd rather Dublin lose Leinster so Cluxton gets a 10th medal. What an achievement that would be if he were to do that. And then Jack Multy says, Kilkenny won't miss out. Wexford are poor. Yeah, I
mm,
agree. I think that
yep.
Kilkenny, over the last 2 years, Kilkenny, in my opinion, haven't been as strong as they have been over the last 20 years. But I just think the standard in Leinster has allowed them to stay top. Dublin haven't been as good as they've been in the last decade, especially not how good as we were under Dalo. Galway have fallen since Donoghue left the first time.
Yeah.
And Wexford are literally as inconsistent as the Irish weather. So you would never know. And Kilkenny have just been able to be that bit consistent, and that's been enough to win what 4 Leinster titles in a row.
Yeah.
Like it's been
Now,
quite.
bearing in
Says
mind, I do think.
Galway and Dublin, Wexford, Carlow should have beaten them last year. They don't have the experience in the dressing room. Yeah, I
Like,
mean,
by the way,
Carlow had them on the ropes in Cullen Park.
hopefully we get on to Carlo very soon. But
Yeah, that's
but
next
the
up.
one thing I'll say about that is I do get the point. The problem is Carlo unfortunately got relegated after, so that's
Yeah,
the challenger that Kilkenny don't want to face. I think Wexford are going to recede this year. Wexford didn't actually beat Kilkenny last year, where they'd beaten them the 2 years before, and I think they're going to be less good this year than last. So I can't see Wexford doing it. Um, I think Galway are going to have a difficult league. I think, though, Donoghue, like for example, Dublin didn't have a great league last year, but
yeah.
Donoghue managed to cast the net widely, find players that things clicked for Dublin come the championship. That's kind of what I'm expecting from Galway, if I'm being honest. So, yeah, my top three this year would be Kilkenny, Galway, Dublin, but don't rule out the other two, the off leads and Entrums making someone's life very difficult and putting egg on a few people's faces. And
Yeah,
it's
no,
actually been good.
certainly.
It's actually been good, the Ladies Championship. We're going to get on to Carlo. It's a perfect segue. That these teams, because when the round robin started, there was just the weaker teams at the bottom, but consistently they're getting results, they're getting draws, they're beating teams. And yeah, probably a perfect segue into what we're talking about next.
Certainly. We'll move then to 1B's round two recap. Now, usually I would just read out the three results for you to give your opinion on, because I was expecting this week that the three results would kind of pick themselves, especially this one. But Carlo have just gone and beaten Waterford for the first time ever in their hurling history. 221 to Waterford's 119 in Netwatch Cullen Park. What a result for Carlo. I mean, for Waterford, it's a disastrous result and
I'm I
crazy.
am actually going to disagree that this is a disastrous result for Watford. I think, to be fair to Carlo, I actually think if you're taking a team who did draw against Kilkenny in last year's championship, I mean, I think it's a case that Carlo, they probably don't have the depth to do it consistently, but on their day, they can do it with the big teams. So I don't actually think this is a case of disaster for Waterford. I think this is a case of the fact that Carlo are going up to a level of the top teams, not consistently, unfortunately for them, but that when they click, when they get the confidence, that they honestly go out and believe they can win. 2 years ago, they played Dublin in a preliminary quarter final in Cullen Park. And a lot of people who I don't think have ever been to a preliminary quarter final, by the way, are all about, oh, these rounds should be gotten rid of, they're pointless, they're walkovers. I actually thought that did great things for hurling. If you saw the atmosphere beforehand, everyone was into it. Carlo did well for 50 minutes, and gradually they've built on that Joe McDonough success 2 years ago. So this has shaken things right up. I think last week the fixtures committee were probably already making plans for the Watford Dublin 1B final. They, I mean, Carlo have now said, you know what, we'll keep that date free ourselves, and who knows? We might see what happens there. Let's put it
And
this way.
from this, do you think Carlo are very serious contenders now to go up to 1A?
Well, yes, because Watford would have been the more difficult ones. So
Mm.
they've drawn it awfully. They've beaten Waterford. So I think
It's
they'd
just
be
my
allowed
point for
a
that question
loss.
was because obviously
Yeah.
you mentioned last year they got that crazy result against Kilkenny, which was unbelievable, but then they
Yeah.
still got relegated. So my point is
Yeah.
do you think they can capitalize on this momentum that this result will give them?
So yeah, that's a very good point. Whereas the main point is I think they can afford to lose to maybe Dublin, let's say. So not going to say they're going to win all the games from here on out. Um,
Mhm.
They actually put it up to Antrim in the last round last year, then got red carded. That's when the Antrim game slipped away from him. So I'd say Carlo would be confident going against Antrim. So I'm not making a prediction here saying they are going to be there, but look at the fixtures ahead. Waterford would have been the more difficult one. So it's not like they have to go up next week against Kilkenny or Tip or Clare. Those games ahead of them. So you know they can they can certainly build on this. Maybe Offaly as well, because they're now tied on top of the table, mainly because Dublin had the bye week, of course. But this could become crazy that Offaly, Carlow might end up looking at each other. Are we beating the teams by enough? Maybe one of them might lose next week and whatever. But at the minute, that's kind of the way things are.
Yeah.
So yeah, it it might make 1B a lot more interesting than 1A, shockingly enough,
Yeah,
if it's
certainly. And like
tighter.
me personally, I don't think Dublin will mess up. I think there's the famous example where we lost to Laois, but I think apart from that, Dublin tend to be quite consistent in terms of we beat who we're supposed to beat, and we rarely go above that and beat somebody that we're not expected to beat. But we did the job that we were supposed to in round one. Antrim have rebounded from that to beat Westmeath 225 to 119 in Belfast, and Offaly also beat Laois by 124 to 115 in Moore Park. What did you make of these two games?
Uh, Good bounce back from Antrim because last week they would themselves have felt that they'd be competitive against Dublin, and they're beaten all over the pitch. Corrigan Park, though, this is the problem for Antrim. Corrigan Park is a fortress. They play well there. They're not playing well on the road. So that's the challenge that Davy as manager and the Antrim players need to overcome, is to get a big result like they did against Clare under Darren Gleeson in the league, against Wexford. They drew at Dublin in Championship 2 years ago, actually, as well, didn't they?
Yeah.
But all of those have been mainly Corrigan Park. So, again, the positive from them, though, is they haven't lost Fortress Corrigan, because, again, it'd be a bad thing if it stopped being a fortress. So that's a good one. Offaly, yeah, I was expecting a bit better from Laois, I have to say. Especially when Offaly drew at Carlow last week and they don't have Screeny. You would have thought that would have leveled things, but that also gave Offaly a good bit of hope that Screeny's will still come in and we're putting up big scores. So a lot of talking about Carlow, but like I said, Offaly are actually level with Carlow in terms of points, probably ahead of them on the points difference. So, that result could also benefit Offaly. We'll see what happens in the week ahead.
Certainly. We'll take a look here. We have a couple of comments coming in, guys. Love to see it. Patrick McDonough says, I like the hurling championship, be like the football. No, so I like the hurling championship to be like the football championship. Top 3 go through and the rest go to the Tailteann Cup, kind of equivalent to hurling. That would be an interesting idea. Liam White then also says, just tuned in. A great result in Laois today. Ravenhill, Diagon, Cahill King, Colin Spain, all exceptional. And then you throw in like the players that they have to come back, like Adam Screeney, like Offaly.
Yep.
They're shaping up nicely, and especially their experience in 1B will do them the world of good. And like I think it's with Offaly, like I'd be interested, Liam, especially in your opinion, obviously as an Offaly man, would you want to go up this season? Because I've seen teams go up too soon. Meath was a good example in the football. They had a good crop there.
Yep.
They went up to Division 1 in 2019. They lost all 7 games and they got relegated. And their confidence was kind of shattered. Whereas I think if you look at Derry, for example, like Derry had 1 year where they missed out on promotion to Division 1. And that meant that the next time it came back around, they were like, undoubtedly, they were going up from the get-go. They were so ready for it. And Patrick here says there is too many teams in Leinster for that not to happen. I do agree. When you look at like Antrim, Carlow, like how much that they could have done with more games, like everything like that. Liam says you've made a good point, and some people might feel it's too soon. But for me, I absolutely want to go up. Of course, if you want to test yourself against the best teams in the country. Nerb here says, well, Antrim Offaly next week. GA messed up the fixture, so they could have had Antrim Offaly double header instead of both playing on different dates at the same venue. I mean, at least
what's up with these things?
But at least there was one game last season. I think it was last season. It could have been 2 years ago, where Derry and Kildare were playing against each other on the same day, 2 hours apart, and they played the hurlers in Owenbeg and they played the football in Newbridge. I remember being like, what the is going on there? He says, Offaly playing Division 1A for me would be unbelievable. Certainly. And I think the experience gained would be sensational. Now, given that, we spent 40 minutes on the small ball, we're going to move to the hurling. I'm going to give a quick run through of the rest of the results for anybody who missed out on them. So starting off with Division 2's round 2 recap, we had Derry 13 points, down 226. Kildare 228, Kerry 17 points, and Donegal 120, Tyrone 13 points. So big wins there for Down, Kildare, and for Donegal. In Division 3's round 2 recap, we have Cavan 117, Sligo 112, London 118, Wicklow 117, and Roscommon 122, Armagh 10 points. And then finally down to Division 4's round 2 recap, we had Louth beating Monaghan 223 to 11 points in Emmy Vale. Warwickshire 118, Lancashire 312, so a draw there in Birmingham, and 114 to 14 points was what Fermanagh beat Longford by in Brewster Park. So Louth definitely looking the strong team there in Division 4. Very eye-catching win over Monaghan, and the other games very, very close indeed. So with all that being said, is there any result out of those 3 divisions, Jared, that caught your eye?
Kildare bouncing back against their loss last week to Down. to beat Kerry. Because I had Kildare strong favourites to go up. I was very surprised last week when they lost it down. I also thought Kerry would go up. So maybe Kerry will bounce back similar to Kildare and eventually they'll be the two to go up, but down are certainly in the mix.
Yeah, no, they certainly are. Well, we're going to move then from the small ball to the big ball and go to the Alliance Football League Division 1's round 2. And we'll start off with the game that took place on Saturday night. Not between Armagh and Tyrone, but between Donegal and Dublin. 20 points to 16, Donegal win in McCool Park. Obviously, there was a lot of eyeballs. Anybody who thought Michael Murphy was going to play in goal, you are an idiot. I'm only messing.
That's Jim McGuinness' dark arts. He put that out.
I'm sorry. But yeah, what did you make of this game? Murphy was obviously on the sideline. There was a lot of thoughts about what McGuinness might come with, what he might try out. What did you make of it?
Well, across the weekend, in terms of the football, there's no one I'd rather be at the moment than Jim Gavin. I think it was actually good for the rules. In terms of that game in particular, I thought Dublin were actually quite poor in the first half. I felt Donegal dominated position. Going to be honest, I know technically we stopped talking about hurling, but this is kind of overlaps with both. I cannot understand why your club man, Owen O'Donnell, is playing with the footballers. He's one of the best fullbacks in hurling.
I would just say he wants an All-Ireland medal.
I know, but like he's named in 14. Once Con is back after he's recovered from Coola's campaign, he's going to take that straight off him. And I don't know. He's one of the best fullbacks in hurling, and maybe he might get into form more next few weeks. But in fairness, I just don't see how he's going to get to a level where he takes the jersey off Con. Also, it's interesting.
No, he's not taking the jersey off Con. No, nobody's taking the jersey off Con.
Someone, I'm going to put this out there. But the style Dublin are trying to play, now they lost last night. We've heard Cluxton's back. Is Gavin Sheridan kind of saying, you know what, he can wear the number 16?
I do think it's interesting because Desi is definitely playing with, bringing the goalkeeper up, letting the goalkeeper get involved in the attack, and definitely
which Cluxton can't do, by the way.
Yeah. So for me personally, if I was, in that situation, I wouldn't understand what the point would be of getting Sheridan to come out and letting the forwards learn how to play with this overlapping runner. If then in the championship, you're going to be like, actually, lads, scrap all that, because we're going to go back to the way that we were before the goalkeeper coming out was such a facet of the game. Jack Nulty agrees with you, it seems. Jerry says, no guarantee double do it anyway. He should have stuck with the hurling. I think it's very much the days of Dublin being a guaranteed All-Ireland medal in your pocket. Like, I think a perfect example of this that happened actually kind of 10 years ago was when Tomas Brady moved from the hurling to the football, and he was Dublin's starting fullback at the time, and he wasn't starting for the footballers, but he moved to the bench. The footballers picked up a couple of All-Irelands. Happy days. And that was when Dublin were in the middle of their 6 in a row. So, and that time it really did seem like Dublin were unstoppable. Dublin are definitely stoppable now. Like, I think we've seen with how hard we've been hitting the off season with Fenton, McCarthy, and obviously the news of Michael Fitzsimons going as well. Mannion not coming back, McCaffrey not coming back. Like, we're definitely not a sure thing. So I think it's interesting that Owens made the jump now.
Yeah, that was also something that confused me. Like, granted, when he went over that season after the Hurls had been already knocked out, and he probably after had to give thought which team he'd go back to. That I think could have made sense because Dublin were close to Kerry, all that. This one, though, there is that kind of sense end of an era. Also on the Mick Fitzsimons things, like, I'm not sure what it is with these Dublin players. They don't like putting out retirement statements to the point where I'm actually wondering, is it going to be some random league game? But like, is it going to be some random league game next year where just randomly out the tunnel, it's going to be like, oh, there's Mick Fitzsimons, Mannion, oh, McCaffrey's there too. I mean, a bit like what Cluxton did.
What that is though as well, man, that is a complete byproduct of Pat Gilroy coming in and then Jim Gavin taking that to the next level. Because what happened was in the 2000s, Dublin were a media's dream. Like Dublin literally overhyped everything, overplayed everything, played Russian roulette the way that they played football. It was genuinely like, a boxer that just tries to run and knock the other person out. It was like, we're either losing by a lot or you're losing by a lot, the way that Dublin played. And that's why the stadiums were full. There was 82,300 people in to see Leinster Championship games, because Dublin would always make it difficult for themselves. And Gilroy came in, and the first thing he did was control the hype, settle everybody down, turn them into a hardworking, unassuming, humble team that were doing, sleep outs for the homeless, and they weren't thinking that they were all that just because they played for Dublin. And that's bred into all of the players now. That's why Cluiche doesn't want, the adulation. Mick Fitzsimons doesn't want the adulation. James McCarthy, like very humble players, considering like the status that they have in Dublin. They could have sponsorships coming out of their ears if they wanted. And they've been very, very, low key about their entire career. Jack says, I would have 3 or 4 teams above Dublin right now, but that could change. Now, I'd be interested, Jack, just who would you have above Dublin? Patrick here says Donegal are just too good. I would be interested, Jed, just in general, going back to it, to kind of recap before we move on to the next game. For Dublin, I didn't fancy this game. I thought it was going to be a very difficult game. I think, again, to use another fight reference, which I love to do, I think, in the UFC, when you have like a striker versus a striker matchup, and it's like a very friendly game. I like Mayo at Croke Park. You knew Mayo were going to come and go toe-to-toe with Dublin and play open, expansive football. This game, to me, screamed of like a striker versus a wrestler. Like someone that's going to come with something different. Dublin aren't going to be as ready for it as they were with what Mayo were going to come with. And I went for a draw, but I said if I was to be pushed on it, I'd go for Donegal to win by a couple of points. There was a lot of talk about what Donegal would come with. There were a lot of rumours about who was going to play where. Was Michael Murphy going to play in goal? What would that mean for Sean Patton? Who was going to be in the forward line? Would Jim McGuinness have anything up his sleeve? All in all, one game in, one win. All in all, one game in, one win. What did you make of him?
Well, the funny thing is, McGuinness is able to change it like that because McGuinness is well known for the blanket defence, whereas they were actually playing very much attacking, and they really adapted well to the new rules, but also their defence held up well in spite of that. So while they were keeping the 3-5 back, I mean, there was a goal opportunity for Dublin. Was it Basquel who had it?
Yeah.
And there was a good block there. So somehow he's managed to turn Donegal into a much more attacking team, but that's still defensively quite solid. Also, every Donegal person loves reminding us when he came in his first year they won Division 2, Ulster got knocked down the semis, and then the following year won the All-Ireland. So, that's the kind of superstition they're hoping for. It is only one game. We'll see what happens against Kerry. And I'm surprised no journalist asked what exactly prevented Donegal from travelling down to Kerry last week. Since Donegal ladies.
You seen how tall Jim McGuinness is? I wouldn't want to ask him that question. I was like,
there's cameras at press conferences. He can't do anything. There's cameras
I'm 6'3",
there.
but still, like when someone's the same height as me, it's intimidating. Me personally, like I am fascinated by what Donegal are going to bring this year. As you mentioned, like there's that feeling with Donegal that it could be an omen. You look at Jim McGuinness's first reign. His first year he came in, won Ulster. They got to an All-Ireland semi-final. And then his second year, they, evolved their attacking game and went on to win the All-Ireland. We've seen the first game in the league here where their attack looked really good against Dublin, especially Oisin Gallen, Darrow Boyle kicking lovely 2-pointers. For Dublin, I wouldn't be too worried. It was always going to be a difficult away day, but for Donegal, it's a perfect start. And seeing the form of some of their key players, how good they were last season, and then what role Michael Murphy could take, I think they are serious
Right.
contenders for the All-Ireland this season, Donegal.
Oh, absolutely. Do
So
you
he
think
says we
we
have a
might?
couple of questions. Wait here, Jer. I'll get through these because
Yeah.
we have a few comments flooding in. Love to see it, guys. Keep them coming. He said here, Jack says his teams above Dublin are Donegal, Galway, Kerry, and Armagh. I mean, I can't really argue with any of them.
I'd
Johnny
argue with
says,
Armagh.
nah, I don't think so. I mean, they're all Ireland champions, Jer. Like,
Fair. Fair.
Johnny says Kerry and Galway are the two best football teams right now. Nerd here says, when was even the last time Donegal lost at home? I mean, the league 2 years ago, I would say, under Paddy Carr, when they had that absolute disastrous league campaign.
Also,
Championship, I'm not actually sure. Then Patrick McDonough here says, I actually said to my dad that Dublin would get to the league final. I wouldn't be surprised if Dublin get to the league final. Division 1 this year, I think it is the 8 best teams. I think there's going to be so much dog eat dog. Like, you win one, then you lose the next week. Johnny says, I watched Kerry today against Derry. Kerry were like wild bears today in Derry. And the other thing as well, with that game, I was impressed with Derry as well. Derry had more fight than I thought that they would. And he says, Jack O'Connor says it's his final year. Clifford brothers are determined to give Jack O'Connor a winning send-off. Now, I haven't heard that Jack O'Connor said that, so I can't.
He gave an interview where, I can't remember what the exact words were. He didn't quite say it was his final year, but he should probably go into politics. But what he said seemed to sound like it was his final year. But yeah, no manager should ever say it's their final year. You'll lose the dressing very quick.
Mm-hmm. Kieran Huygen then says, only seen the second half, expected a Donegal win, but thought Dublin gave a good account, left a lot of scores behind. I do think there was some flash goal chances as well, like the Sean Bugler one in the first half and everything. Like, it's a game that even though we lost, I'm not that concerned. Anyway, we're at 57 minutes and we're not even through the football, so we'll start to pick up the pace a little bit. We'll move to this game because it was a banger and it deserves a lot of talk. Derry 124, but Kerry 515. This one was in Celtic Park. Super game and really, really enjoyable. And like, if there's ever a game that will showcase what the new rules can do, I mean, this was it.
I mean, I felt like this game was an apology from both Derry and Kerry for what they gave us in last year's quarterfinal. And we were actually, I mean, we were owed it, but like it was actually something else because you just felt teams you didn't know who the momentum was with at times. And in fairness, if you showed the last, 30, 25 seconds, I mean, even that in itself is quite something to see. Never mind the other few minutes. And it probably does back up your point, by the way the last 25 seconds went, to your point about the stop clock earlier. Just on that. But also, bearing in mind, it's Kerry's first outing because the Donegal game did go ahead last week. Derry had to bounce back after losing to Tyrone. And this is one, though, where I felt the teams were fully embracing the rules, because a lot, you have the managers questioning this bit of the rules, that bit, we don't know. Whereas somehow these two teams, it's as if they knew what the new rules were. The ref knew what the new rules were. We're going to go out, we're going to play football, we're going to go for goals, 2-pointers, and take the 1-pointer if it comes. So yeah, I said about the football, the person I'd most like to be this weekend is Jim Gavin. Certainly anyone on the FRC committee would have been delighted watching that game.
Yeah, no, there were some super games. I mean, even especially like Meath putting up 321, the Cork and Down game was so high scoring. And that game last year, let's be honest, would have been low scoring. So it's definitely doing a lot. Patrick says here, Derry should have won. And Jack says, with no Clifford lol, and Derry probably should have won it. So is that a sentiment that you would agree with, that Derry will be kicking themselves here? Because it was said on the commentary. It was said on the commentary by Brian Tyres, I believe, who was commentating that game. He was definitely on one today. But whoever wins their home games will be okay, but whoever loses their home games is in big trouble of going down. And Derry now, that's one home game down and they've lost.
Yeah.
So you're looking at it, they've lost to Tyrone, they've lost to Kerry. They now have to get 3 wins out of Galway, Mayo, Armagh, Dublin.
Yeah,
Not looking good for them.
I mean, bearing in mind, you also forget they're the reigning Division 1 champions. So, like,
We're tagging
they
on the
shouldn't.
back.
Well, I'm not even so much in the target, but you probably shouldn't follow a Division 1 title with relegation. Although I
Yeah.
think Mayo did that 2019, 2020.
Yes,
But
they
anyway,
did. They wouldn't
um,
do.
but at the same time, that has to be kind of the message. It's like this is a competition we won last year. We shouldn't be getting relegated. Also, Paddy Telly's said that Kieran McFall is out for the rest of the season, I believe, after the game. Or he definitely,
That's a big loss if he is.
yeah. So again, that's also where that a lot of the time when you lose games in the league, sort of rally cries, oh, this player's to come back, this player will be stronger then. So it's going to be difficult for Derry to stay up. I think there's a clear picture emerging about who the two going down are at the
Do you
moment.
think it's Derry and Mayo, do you?
Oh, when we get
Yeah.
on to Galway Mayo, like I could not understand Mayo.
Yeah, we'll get a, my recap on this game is that it was just between Derry and Kerry, a superb game. I do think
Yeah.
Derry probably did leave it behind them, and I think they'll have big regrets
Oh, yeah.
about the crazy last 60 seconds
Sorry.
where, like, come on, if Kerry score a goal, you should not be taking a short, risky kick out in the immediate.
Also,
Just
the
belt it on
advantage
the
of,
grass, like.
but also the advantage of the countdown clock. Just you can see the seconds go down. Take your time on the kick out.
Yeah.
Like because even if you lose the kick out, if you take your time, doesn't matter. This is also why I think it should play to last attack. By the way, even if they were about to kick it into the net, it would have been gone.
Yeah, no, I agree. Look, I do think Derry, there's a lot of positives to take because I personally looked at the bizarre way that it took so
They
long to
lost.
appoint Paddy Tally and then how poor they
Yeah.
were against Tyrone on the opening day, apart from Conor Glass's wonder goal. And I was just saying, realistically, I think that they're a sure thing to get relegated, but they showed a lot of fight against a very, very good Kerry team here who, yes, they were without the Cliffords, but they still had cracking players in there like Shawnee O'Shea and the like. So and Conor Gainey looked really, really good. So and Donald O'Sullivan looked sharp when he came off the bench. So Kerry definitely have a lot of strength and depth this season, and I wouldn't rule them out of winning the All Ireland. Paul Gainey off the bench, sharp as ever. He has to get a shout. 2 goals for him as well.
Yeah.
2-2, I think it was for Conor Gainey. Unbelievable performance by Kerry. Very good performance by Derry, who just unfortunately came out the wrong side. But in all, a sensational game of football. Shane McGuigan hit some unbelievable points. Conor Gainey, as I mentioned, hit some unbelievable points. It was just a cracking game of football. And I'm looking forward to seeing more from both of those teams after that. We'll move then to Mayo and Galway. I'll let you get your rant out here. Mayo 16, Galway 26. What exactly do you think went wrong for Mayo here in this one?
A lack of brains.
Yeah.
Just
There was one
amount
part
of
in the second
times.
half where I noticed that it was like they were trying to foul Galway right on the 40-metre arc line.
But like this was the thing. It became clear early on that if you give Shane Walsh the opportunity to kick outside the big arc, you're giving them 2 points. I mean, also even just small things like how do you get caught on a 3v3 twice?
Yeah.
Like what? And it was just annoying because there'd be these times when they might get 2 points without reply or something, and you might feel, oh, there might be a bit of momentum here. And then they do something like give Shane Walsh a free down the other end to cancel out the 2 points they got immediately. And yeah, I just.
No, it'd be interesting
Mayo
your
played well.
take on
Mayo
this,
played
Jared.
well.
It'd be interesting your take
Yeah.
on this. Tony Barrett says here, Mayo are in a worse situation in 2025 than they were in 2010 when they lost to Longford. Obviously, that was the year where Sligo beat them in Connacht. Longford knocked them out with the qualifiers. That was when John O'Mahony stepped down. God rest his soul. James Horan came in the next year. Do you think that they're in a bad situation, Mayo?
Well, the funny thing about Mayo is it's when they can have disastrous league campaigns, it's when they look like everything's going to go worst that suddenly they'll have a championship and it'll be amazing. They'll do crazy things. They'll get to a final unexpectedly. So
Mhm.
I always find it difficult to write off
I don't
Mayo.
know if I agree with that one. I'd have to say like
I
Mayo are they're
now
being that it's being glossed over a lot. It's being glossed over that they have been falling backwards. They have like
oh
since
the players they're
2021,
missing. Yeah,
but
the player
but
like
2021 like they 2021 they got to that All Ireland final after beating Dublin, and that was a Dublin team that like obviously it's a longer debate, but that was a Dublin team
yeah
that, in my opinion, wasn't at the level that it had been at in years previous. Mayo beat them in the semi final. Tyrone had a more impressive win in the other semi final over Kerry that year. They get into the final. Tyrone beat them. 2022, Kerry held them at arm's length in the quarterfinal. 2023, Dublin demolished them in the quarterfinal.
yeah
Last year, they didn't even get to the quarterfinal. They're slipping
yeah.
further and further away from being contenders in the championship. They need like
Forward.
serious improvements. Mac McDonough here. I think, Patrick, you're a Mayo man by the looks of things. He says we didn't lay a glove on them, but we'll have a better championship.
Like, okay, here's if you were to make a case, this isn't necessarily my opinion, but playing devil's advocate, Aidan O'Shea's to come back, the Cross Malina contingent to come back. Um,
But they've been around
in
the
the,
last few years.
I know. I'm just saying in terms of being better for today. Now, last year they didn't get to the quarterfinal. That being said, they did have some decent performances against Dublin. They played very well, and part of me wonders if not for that last second equaliser from McCaffrey, where would Mayo have gone from there if they'd gone straight into the quarters? I mean, in a split second, their championship completely changed. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, I just think there's a bit more. But and I felt they played well against Dublin last week. But again, that's not a great Dublin team that was out last week either. Uh, calling a spade a spade. So, yeah, like if you're to ask me, I don't think Mayo will be in the semis this year.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either, to be honest. I would be surprised. I think it depends on the draw. I think that they could get there. I think that Jack Nolte listed four teams there. I think right now, if to push man, I think if Dublin run into any of them four teams in the quarterfinal, I think our road could stop there as well. I think it could be a bit of a changing of the guard over the next couple of years. Johnny Barrett here says Mayo have not won an All Ireland minor since 2013. And I mean, like that does kind of
Does
translate.
it matter?
It
I mean,
does.
the Armagh haven't. They won last year's All Ireland. Was the
Yeah,
last time Armagh
correct.
won it?
It's more
What?
kind of an omen of what's to come in the future. It's more like
Okay.
this is coming on the horizon, just like what we were talking
Yeah.
with Tip in the hurling. And Jack Nutty says, where will Mayo get the wins from? Me personally, I don't think there's going to be many wins coming, which is why I've tipped them to be relegated this season. And after seeing how much Derry fought like hell to the bitter end against Kerry, I'm all of a sudden not that confident that Mayo won't finish last. I genuinely mean it. Galway, yeah. Patrick here says if we don't go far, Max Stay needs to go. Jer, is Max Stay on the ropes in your opinion?
Well, if they don't make the semis this year, I don't think he'll stay personally. And
Okay.
also, bearing in mind the
Does the
All
league title
Ireland.
last year, but league title 2 years ago, buy him no time?
Well, no, because it's 2 years later. First of all, and it's a league title. Uh, but yeah, also something that I was kind of thinking to myself after the senior club final is if McStay wasn't manager next year, could Austin O'Malley step into the role?
Austin O'Malley is a brilliant coach. Like, I mean, he took Coola, straight through their first Dublin Championship, first Leinster Championship, and first All Ireland Championship, all in the 1 year. So definitely has to be considered. But right now, I think Mayo do need
Yeah.
something big. The one thing I've noticed is, in comparison to
Mhm.
other teams, this is the last point I'm making this before we move on to the Armagh Tyrone game, but that I look at most teams have a sharpshooter on the right foot, a sharpshooter on the left foot. Mayo don't have their left-footed guy. Like, you look at Galway, they have Walsh on the right, Finnerty on the left. Dublin, over the last few years anyway, have had Con on the right, Mannion on the left. Kerry have had Clifford on the left, Shawnee on the right. Mayo's top forwards are all right-footed kickers, whether it's Ryan O'Donoghue, Tommy Conroy, James Carr, Killian O'Connor. They're all right-footed.
Is Fergal Boland left-footed?
No.
For some reason.
He's
Okay, he's right. Okay, so
yeah.
he's right-footed too.
Aidan Norm has shown potential. I think he's a left-footed kicker. Fionn McDonough as well as a wing forward with a lot of promise. But again, he's more of a wing forward. He's not really an inside forward. And Mayo fans, genuinely, do you think that a left footer, I like Patrick as well. Patrick, I know Patrick, you're a Mayo man. Is there any left-footed kicker from Mayo in the forwards that you'd be looking at as potentially being someone who could be a Paul Mannion type? He says, how can he possibly, this is about McStay, I think, say we were unfortunate. I'm losing more trust in him. Yeah, I feel like...
Yeah, he gave a...
I would look at that a little bit and say, like, are you under pressure? Because like to look at managers in the past, the minute you come out and start, like, look at Glenn Ryan last season, like, all of a sudden it was everybody else's fault. Like, it was a journalist's fault. It was a da-da-da, and like,
now,
the ship's falling down around you. It's easier to point.
The one thing I'll say about being unfortunate is Galway got this win, but I didn't feel Galway were even out of second gear. I'm not sure if unfortunate was the right word, but, you know, easier said than done, but if Mayo just stopped stupid mistakes in terms of fouling, that could have been a much closer game. So maybe if that's what he was angling at, then I can kind of understand. Now, you can't just switch off stupidity, which is the problem. But that I can kind of see where it's like, look, it wasn't necessarily that we were losing the battles comprehensively. It was just our decision making. And, you know, bearing in mind, Galway have 4 less points if Mayo don't, actually probably 5 because they had a point cancelled out because of the 3v3. That's a 5-point swing in just that alone.
Yeah, no, big time. Okay, we are going to have to pick up the pace because we're on 1 hour and 12 minutes. I will probably be fast asleep in an hour's time. So I'll just get your word on this. Armagh 123, Tyrone 18 points. As I said in the title, the Armagh bounced back, the All-Ireland champions, facing a lot of people who are saying that they were going to lose this game. And they really, really put up an impressive scoreline. 123 to 18 points they beat Tyrone by, especially with the breeze. They did a lot of damage. What did you make of this game?
So quite quickly, I feel Armagh just probably looked last week and was like, no, we need to show ourselves to be All-Ireland champions. They were very ruthless in how they applied themselves. Tyrone, they had their win last week. Again, it probably showed that Armagh probably needed this win a bit more. Tyrone, they do have the Ergal Kieran, the Kavanaghs to come back. I do think Malachi's quite level-headed, so he'll be disgusted, but again, I have a sneaky feeling Tyrone could shock us this year. Not sure what they're going to do, but they'll do a lot better than people are expecting.
They'll definitely do a lot better than they did last season. I mean, last season was as bad as I've seen Tyrone. So, I mean, they can only really get better. The Alliance Football League, then Division 2. I'm going to run through the 4 games and then give me your thoughts on how the round went. So, obviously, the standout result that I was looking at was how Louth and Roscommon would get on. Louth 115, Roscommon 117 at the Gaelic Grounds in Drogheda. Meath putting up a big win against Cavan, 321 to 20 points in Port Talton. Monaghan and Westmeath putting on a banger here, 229 to 221 in St. Tinnick's Park in Clonus. And then Down beating Cork, 119 to 215 at Park Esler in Newry. Which one stood out the most to you?
The one that stood out in terms of the result was actually the result between Down and Cork, because Cork were, I'm not sure if it was 9 or 10 points up at one stage, but Down stuck with it and snatched victory from the jaws of defeat at the end. So you look at those results, and for example, the Roscommon result, that's probably a promotion playoff between Roscommon and Louth. I was reading a lot of publications and a lot of podcasts. Didn't think Monaghan would make promotion, which I could never understand. I was very confident they're going to go straight back up. I'm glad 2 games in, uh, they seem to be going
They haven't
along that
faced Louth
path.
or Roscommon yet. That's what I'm confident they'll slip up there.
Yeah, I yeah, but they are putting up big scores.
You can't,
If you
yeah, you
read the
can't deny
report,
that.
if you read the match reports again, the 2 pointers. Granted, haven't Louth Roscommon yet, but at the same time, if you look, okay, if you were going Monaghan v Louth, I'd be confident Monaghan would do that. Maybe Monaghan might lose to Roscommon. Okay. Uh, as for uh, as for Cavan Meath, that could be tricky for Cavan. Cavan are very inconsistent. They could be Division one season and 3 years later in Division 4. I would have thought Meath to go down. That could be a result that sends Cavan down and keeps Meath in Division 2. So it could be one that Cavan end up regretting.
Yeah, no, I think that they definitely will, especially like Meath would have been kind of one of the teams around their level in the league to lose that game, but to lose it heavily, I think will
Yeah.
be a big setback in their league campaign. We have a couple of comments in here, guys. Love to see it. Keep them coming. We'll start off with one more comment from Patrick McDonough, given that this was about the Mayo game. He says, only positive, Paul Towie played well, but we don't have much left-footed players. Yeah, Paul Towie actually stood out to me. He looked pretty good. Johnny Barrett here says, Tyrone don't take the league seriously, and Tyrone are happy just staying in Division 1. The All-Ireland and Ulster title was always their target under Mickey Hart. That's very true. Mickey Hart certainly put a lot on winning Ulster titles. Then our good friend Matthew Hurley, the Gaelic Statsman, he's talking about the Cork game. He says, still some bright sparks for Cork despite the loss. 4-point swing on 64 minutes was a vital moment. Harsh free against Paul Walsh for barging down one end. Danny McGill goals down the other. Disappointing, but still more positive signs for Cork than last year. We will keep improving. Cork are not going down this year. Promotion could be a possibility. I would agree with all that. I genuinely would agree with that. When you have a 4-point swing like that, it's real, and it definitely does then make the scoreboard look kind of different to how it actually was.
Like, I'm almost in full agreement. Cork aren't out of the promotion race yet, but that could be the result that stops them. And that seems to happen in Cork every year in Division 2. There's always just that one result they end up regretting, and that unfortunately could be it. But look, they just have to move on to the next game. I mean, Division 2, it always just changes and doesn't make up its mind most years. So I expect this year to be no different.
Certainly as well, guys. If anybody is here watching the program wondering about the LGFA results, there is actually 2 more games tomorrow from Division 1. That's Meath and Mayo at 2 o'clock, and then Waterford and Kerry at 3:45. They're both taking place tomorrow, would you believe, on a Monday. So I am going to be waiting for those 2 games to take place and then doing a separate video where I go into the LGFA's round 2 and then Division 4's round 3. But this one is going to be primarily just on the men's football and the hurling. So continuing with
Division
the
3
trend, division will move down. I'll actually give my quick take actually on the other 3 games. Very impressed by Monaghan. Again, another big scoreline. Westmeath scoring 221, though you would worry about Monaghan's defence, especially considering that that's a Westmeath forward line without Heslin, without Ronan O'Toole. Like, they will face tougher tests. And when you see Meath putting up 321, for example, I'm very interested to see them 2 go head to head. Meath made good on their promise that they showed against Cork, hitting the 321. As I said, Cavan, that's a massive blow, losing like that to a team that is probably around their level. And the way Cavan have played in the first 2 games, it would not put it past them getting relegated the way that it's opened up for them. Louth losing to Roscommon at home wouldn't take anything from that.
I mean, it's a close result, and you always knew Roscommon were going to be at the top end. So again, Ger Brennan, he'll still have ambitions to go up. So I think the big one will be Monaghan against Louth. My gut would be. My gut at the moment, though, would be Monaghan to edge that.
I still think Down could mess things up. I wouldn't be surprised if Down could take a scalp off one of Louth or Monaghan. I think that Down definitely with these rules have a lot of flair players, could cause a lot of issues, and obviously beating Cork, like they'd be full of confidence. I agree completely with Matthew on the Cork one. They're definitely not getting relegated now. I was impressed with them in the Meath game and this one as well. I backed them now to beat Cavan, to beat Westmeath, and do enough to keep themselves up. Division 3 then. We'll run through these. This definitely is the standout result from Division 3. Kildare, mean business. 116 to 13 points. They beat Sligo away in Markievicz Park. You said this was going to be a result that kept them down. That kept them down in Division 3. You said they would not get promoted. But at the same time, your team, Clare, did bounce back 217 to 10 points. They beat Leitrim and Cusack Park. Offaly beating Laois 219 to 117. And then Fermanagh beating Antrim 216 to 312 in Aderney. So obviously, Clare was the result that stood out the most to you, but what did you make of all 4 games?
Okay, so first of all, I called I gotta say, 2 games in, Sligo have let me down. I really
What
thought,
do you think has been with their flat start?
I honestly don't know, because there was so much momentum. Even you see a Sligo club winning a club level underage, and you're just kind of thinking these guys with Connacht minor and under 20 medals going into Division 3, they should be confident, they should be bold, shouldn't fear any other team there. So yeah, it's actually just, I'm not going to just make up a reason to explain it. It's actually just quite unexplainable. Um, I I'm obviously going to be biased here, but even more so because Clare lost to Antrim. Uh, from what I know, because I was at the Clare Kilkenny game, which was on at the same time, the first half cost them that game. It seemed to be an issue like cobwebs first game of the season. The second half, they're much better. Because Clare need to beat Kildare to go up, probably, I still fancy Clare to win that. I'll gladly come on in a few weeks if I'm wrong, just so you can force me to eat humble pie. But Kildare, they will go up. They will go up. I was wrong on that. Sligo aren't going to keep them down, so it does look like Kildare will go up. And what was the other one? Clare Antrim was a good bounce back. Antrim actually lost to Fermanagh.
Antrim
So
lost to Fermanagh. Fermanagh 216,
yeah,
Antrim 312.
so we have to play Fermanagh next. So that's going to be tough, because we have to play and beat a team who beat a team who beat us. Uh, yeah, and Fermanagh, their team who frustrate you. I'll actually want to see that game in person, because a team like Fermanagh, who used to play super defense, frustrate you. How are they playing under the new rules? And
Yeah.
this is the thing, because we know how Division 1 are playing under new rules. We got a Division 2 game on air last week. So I think it's because where the mass defense was probably most common is the lower tiers. So that's probably where we have to see, well, what's happening Division 3 and 4 under these new rules.
Yeah, certainly. And look, you are right. Fermanagh are one of those that they'd be a tricky team to get past, and they definitely showed it in Division 2 last season. They were very unlucky to go down. Like, you'd look at that Cork goal, I think it was Maurice Shanley's goal. I wonder if Matthew's watching, will he be able to tell me? I'm pretty sure it was Shanley's goal. But if that hadn't have gone in and Fermanagh had won that game, you'd imagine that they would have been able to avoid the drop and, potentially kick on in Division 2. It would have been difficult given the calibre of teams that are in there. But to see them struggle the way they did in week 1 against Kildare, I was very surprised. And yeah, it would be interesting to see kind of how it's affecting every team. Nerb here says, good performance by Antrim. I would have said if they won it, it would have got Antrim into the promotion race. That's the way that Division 3 is. Yeah. It's literally, if you look at a team and think they have the potential to go up, they definitely also have the potential to get relegated. Like, there was that one famous season where Cavan and Tip, who had both won the provincial championships the year before, both got relegated. Yeah. That was bonkers. Like, I just remember being like, what is going on? But yeah, that is Division 3 wrapped up. I'm still confident in my predictions. I said that I think it's probably be Leitrim. The Leitrim down, I'm confident in. Antrim finishing 7th. I'm not really that confident in that anymore.
Okay.
But I definitely am confident in Kildare and Clare going up in first and
Yep.
second. We've one more comment in here. Jack Nulty says, geez, sickening for us in Longford, losing in additional time for a 2-pointer from Tip. Yeah, we'll come to that game as well in Division 4. So, Jack, for you, we'll touch on that game first. Jer, I will actually give a segment to this game just with Jack watching. So, Tipperary 3-13, Longford 1-18 in Clonmel. It's a very heartbreaking result for Longford. They had obviously the entertaining draw in their opening game, but then losing this game. Longford are a team that, in terms of their heritage over the last 10, 15 years and the teams that they've been competing with and how solid that they were in Division 3, they kind of stick out like a bit of a sore thumb in Division 4. Like you'd imagine with the players they've had over the last 15 years, the lineage of like the Paul Bardens and the Shawnee McCormicks and the Mickey Quinns and etc., etc. You'd imagine that they could get out. They've found it sticky, and this year it's starting to look like they might miss the boat again.
Well, and again, this is probably, I know if you're Longford, you're cursing the new rules, but this is one of the things I've actually enjoyed about the new rules is when you have a 2-point lead. We've always said it's the most dangerous lead
Oh, it's
in
really
Gaelic
dangerous
games,
now.
but it's really dangerous now. Where even at the end of Dublin Mayo, when who was it went for the 2-pointer went
O'Donoghue.
wide, but
Man,
O'Donoghue.
O'Donoghue.
Yeah, but again, it does add that suspense. Whereas before, if you had a 2-point lead, you'd frustrate the game, you'd pack the defense, all that sort of thing. So one of the things contribute to it. I was actually talking to someone from Tip today who's very much football Tip. They actually do exist, and he said that. He reckons Tip's good form is they're actually playing their home games in Clonmel, and that Thurles didn't suit them. It was too eerie. It'd be this big eerie stadium, whereas apparently Clonmel, it's where apparently they train. So he reckons that is just a small thing that might have helped turn around their fortunes. So
Yeah, definitely
maybe
an
there is.
interesting tweak for sure. Jack comments in here on the game. He says, we've lost lots of players, but new rules seem to help to get a revival. But we have lost a lot of players with 2-point ability, David McGivney and Darren Gallagher. That's another thing as well, that the new rules, sorry, I should say. And Johnny Barrett here says Clonmel is the home of Tip football. I
There you
think
go.
there you go. But like, I mean, when you look at it that way, that there's a lot of teams kind of around the country that would have 2-point shooters. Like you look at Armagh and you'd be like Rian O'Neill, Rory Grugan, like all these lads are definitely capable of belting them over. You're looking at
Actually,
Donegal, you're looking at Darrow Boyle, Paddy McBrearty, like that teams like will
actually.
suit certain rules. Yeah,
Even,
that's been
even
something
just
that
lower
has been
down, in Clare in the match report, Owen Cleary got two pointers. Emmett McMahon got one, so they be two players who are well able to put it over from outside the arc. So I
even
imagine that,
Roscommon with the Merthyr boys,
yeah,
Dermot especially, he's loving the 2-point arcs.
yeah.
He's
So
having a great time.
you just wonder, is there going to be a team lower down who could go much further than we would have imagined, simply because they have a 2-point shooter that was no good to them under the old system. Like, who knows? Who
Yeah.
knows who it is? Is it like a Clare? Is it like a Longford or something? Where there's just a 2-point shooter there hiding. That these new rules, it'll just be like maybe they reach a provincial final, get into the group stage, cause an upset. So yeah, that's one of the exciting things about these new rules.
Yeah, we've a comment in here from Nerve. He says, just making
Okay,
it
we're
tight,
on
lads.
Division 4. We're on Division
Sunday
4.
game is
Okay, we're
coming
almost
on.
there.
Would you believe, lads? That's why it's on at 8 o'clock. You can get your, opinion from Cluiche, and then you can go on and watch the Sunday game and see which one you prefer. Just make it till Sunday game's coming on. We will wrap it up right here with this. And as I said, guys, if you're want to see the LGFA recap, that will be tomorrow after the 2 games that are on. Waterford 12 points, Carlow 215 in Field, Limerick 13 points, Wexford 17 points in Rathkeale, London 120, Wicklow 21 points in Ruislip. So what those 3 results are telling me is I think that this is finally the year that Wexford put the inconsistencies aside and get promoted. and Wicklow might just have hit a big hiccup in their own promotion, Judge.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, Wicklow actually, when they were predicted to get absolutely hammered in Division 3 last year, they actually put in a good few performances. So I would have actually had them as strong contenders to head back up. Also, I'd say Watford are really hating Carlow this weekend. It seems to be just everything. Where, bearing in mind, Carlow isn't a team that you talk about much in Gaelic games. So to lose to them twice in one weekend is something I'm pretty sure Carlow will be smug at. They're better than Watford.
Certainly. Well, this weekend they certainly are. Carlow
Yeah,
could be a
this
dark
weekend.
horse for promotion as well, the way it's opened up for them there with Limerick having a setback. The
They
big
really do
results.
punch above their probably do punch above their weight, considering their population. That
Yeah.
they do get competitive in games that they probably shouldn't be in football, but obviously more so in hurling.
Yeah. Last comment here, McConville says, no, Nerb says McConville is focusing on the BBC podcast. I mean, with a result like that, I mean, it makes for good content. What happened in your defeat
Yeah.
to London? But anyway, guys, that has been the recap of the Gaelic football and the hurling in the Allianz League round 2. We got through a lot in an hour and a half. Thank you so much to Jer for jumping on for another episode. And guys,
Yep.
absolutely loved the comments coming in. Just going to give a shout out to everybody, to Johnny Barrett, to Patrick McDonough, to NIOB, which how on earth do I even say that name? To Gareth Gregan for mugging you off, Jer.
No.
To Jack Milty, to Liam White, to the Gaelic Stats man, of course, and make Kieran Hohigan. And of course, then is that everybody? It is indeed. Guys, that has been another video here on Unclare with me, Seamus Brady, and Jer Gregan. We'll be back for a week preview as well on Wednesday. And of course, the LGFA weekend recap tomorrow. We'll see you then. Enjoy the Sunday game. Have a great week. Take care.